Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm Don Grodoff. Along with my wife Gina, we have a practice called Focused Healthy Family, helping families get past the behavior and anxiety issues naturally. We also produce the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, where we are advocates for our own family and others dealing with OCD and anxiety. In the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, we do interviews, provide resources, and information for treatment and support of OCD recovery. We also want to hear from you, your comments, and if you want to tell your story, we want to put it up on the podcast, on our Stories from the OCD side. Our goal in these podcasts is to raise awareness of and advocate for the recovery from obsessive-compulsive disorder, better known as OCD. Now, before we get to that podcast, let's hear about our sponsor.
Today I'm here to talk about Q Science's sleep spray. Q Sciences has a number of different sprays. There's a melatonin sleep spray that contains melatonin, 5-HTP, and L-theanine. And we've used other melatonin products to help our children with falling asleep. Melatonin is something that occurs naturally in our body that helps us quiet and calm down for sleep. And yet I really feel like I've seen a difference in the spray versus other products. Our youngest is here to talk about it. What things did you like better about the spray versus the other things?
I don't like the chew tablets because they leave like a weird taste, and they're mainly like they also have like you get bits in your teeth.
Okay, so Q Science's spray.
It's a lot better, I'd say. The taste is pretty decent and it works well.
Okay. I'm happy with the quality of these products and how they're helping our whole family. If you'd like to learn more,
simply go to qsciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com, or visit invisiblewheelchair.com and find out more information there.
There are a lot of supplement products out there, yet you want one that's of good quality. Check out Q Sciences for your family.
Now, let's get to that podcast. This podcast was recorded June 24th, 2022. This is podcast number 70. What is transgender? Today I'm talking about a very how would I say this? A gentle topic that is controversial. I bring it up because I have people close to me that are going through this, and I wanted to educate myself on this topic instead of trying to get it from social media or from word of mouth or whatever. I wanted to just understand it. And when I did understand it, and I did research some time ago. This research that I did now, by the way, comes from two sources. American Psychological Association. There was an article that was called Transgender People, Gender Identity, and Gender Expression. And it was very detailed, very good article. So I would suggest Googling it and pulling it up. The other one was from transgender.com. And so what I wanted to do today was just to help to educate, because actually when I researched it, it actually made a lot of sense. Because I at first didn't really understand how that could be. And you were born that way with the penis, and you just are what you are. When we got into people being gay, we realized that there was something else, that there was something that wasn't defining correctly. And like I said, I think this whole transgender thing actually takes us back to a better way to describe our being, who we are. I think our binary way of determining male and female was something that we set as humans, trying to define ourselves. It's almost like the idea of God. we had to make a being out of it, God, and we had to define that, because it was something that was so out there we didn't know what to do. And I think the same has happened here, because as I did the research on this, it really helped me to understand it, but it also made it a little clearer about what we are as human beings. So, transgender person is one whose gender or gender identity or expression, how we express ourselves, does not match their sexual assigned at birth, their sexuality. So in other words, because we have a penis or a vagina, doesn't necessarily mean that's how we express ourselves. Gender, and I think that's one of the things that I think I know myself was even confused on, that I just thought of gender and sexuality as the same thing, and it's not. Gender is a person's internal sense of being male, female, or something else. It's how they express their identity to others. So it's called gender expression. Sexuality is our biological status, that physically how we came out as birth, whether we had a penis or whether we had a vagina, whether we had the idea of transgender, of mixture of whether you're male or female or whatever, it's been around for centuries. There's indigenous people in different cultures that have expressed themselves differently than a binary male or female. And I thought that was interesting when you think about, and one of the confusions I had in trying to understand this too is when you say trans male or trans man, do you mean they were a man then they trans to female? No, a trans man is going from female transitioning to male. A trans female or trans woman is going from male to female. The surgery that a lot of times people have to actually physically change their body. If they have a penis, they want to get rid of it and have a vagina, or vice versa. Or if they are male and they want to become female, they want to have breasts. So they have surgery to be able to do that. And what they call that is gender reassignment surgery. I think it's SRS. I'm not sure now. I've got to think about why SRS, but I saw that somewhere. And there's a lot of different terms, of course, that go along with it. Genderqueer is someone that doesn't really match any binary, or doesn't wish to or feel they fit either male or female. They're just, there's non-binary, there's a lot of terms like gender non-conforming, there's gender fluidity, where one day they feel male, one day they feel female. And so what they in one of the I think it was the association, the psychological association, they talked about the idea that in the brain we have male characteristics and female characteristics. Everybody has them. We have both. Whether it's hormones, or I think even talking about chromosomes and DNA, we have a lot of different characteristics in the brain and in the body too, I believe. And so it's about the balance of those things that I believe makes the difference. And that's what started making sense to me. That the fact that I've always kind of heard this, that we all have some female in us and we all have some male in us. Whether if we're male, we do have female characteristics, and if we're female, we have male characteristics. And it's that balance that makes the difference. It's not like we come out and we're born with the sexual of a female, that all our characteristics are all about female. There's no male in it at all. That's not true. And in reality, what I've learned too is that we are all born female first. We are born with with a vagina, or a vagina type part of our body that will form completely into a vagina, or it will turn and form into a penis. So in reality, we're all female first. Please understand that I'm not a scientist in this, so my stuff is learned from what I've read and kind of looked into and studied. Like I said, it really made so much more sense to me when I realized the fact of, of course, something I've known forever probably, that we all have male and female characteristics. And so it all depends on the balance of those, I think, that make a difference. So though we may be born with a male body, sexual parts, in our brain, the balance may be much more heavy on the female side. And thus we can come out with a male body, but in our minds feel very female. And so it almost makes me want to take away the terms male and female and just know that these other terms that we talk about probably fit us more concisely. Now, I'm male, I'm not transgender myself, so I don't speak about this to try to justify that I know it all or anything like that, but I think it's important to educate myself, to be around these people that I know, and to educate society, because it's such a tragic topic right now that is unnecessary. In reality, I feel like, really, who cares if you want to be this or that? That's your thing. I don't see that it's harming others. But I think people that are prejudiced to it feels like it some way harms, others. I think I've seen gay couples. I don't know if I haven't really met any transgender couples yet. But I've seen gay couples that are better parents than the typical couple or family or parents. And so I really don't understand the people's excuses when they say that, the gay marriage is ruining regular marriage, typical marriages or whatever. So I think it's important that we educate ourselves to understand, and I think it's kind of cool in a way that this whole topic, this whole conversation that the world is having on transgender, on gay, and all of that, is opening us up to a different idea about how we are as human beings, that we aren't necessarily this perfect binary male or female, that we're all somewhere kind of in between. I know myself, I always grew up feeling like I wasn't that full male that I was not a huge sports person. I didn't like heavy metal. I always thought that I liked more softer rock as growing up. And so I always thought, it felt a little weird to me. It didn't always feel like I was the most masculine of men. even though I am a man and I feel like a man, I don't even think about that I'm gay or anything. I love my wife and my family. But I think I realize that I do have some female characteristics in me that stand out a little stronger than my male ones do, but not enough to make me gay, or not enough to make me feel like I should be a different orientation. So I guess, again, I wanted to educate and for us to think about the fact of this balance that we have within us, this balance of chromosomes, this balance of hormones, this balance of characteristics that we all have in us. So that if one person wants to come out as gay or as transgender or different than the binary descriptions we've made for them, I think it's wonderful. I think you're finally getting down to identifying reality in ourselves, in our being, that we are more than just one type of person, that there's more complexity to us. I like the fact that it makes me think that it amazes me in the fact that I am much more complex than I can even imagine in my mind. It's kind of like the universe, the complexity of the universe. I remember as a child, I used to try to think about what's beyond. When I look out into the sky, I would think, is there an end to this? Are we just little models in a shoebox in somebody's closet in another dimension, So I used to always think about what is beyond, and it used to blow my mind. It was hard. I mean, it's hard to think about because you don't. If we ever were able to fly out in a spaceship, would we ever run into like in Truman, the movie Truman, where he took a boat and rammed into the edge of the world, and it cracked open, and he saw he wasn't living in out into the real world. He was living in this cocooned world. So the complexity of the universe is amazing. Well, I think it is also to say the complexity of a human being is beyond our comprehension. It's magnificent, the miracle we are, of what we're put together and how we're put together, and what kind of energy, what kind of a being, I don't know, I don't like that word so much, but, what is it that God, how did we come about like this, to being so complex that we don't even understand ourselves, and maybe there's a purpose to that, not fully understanding our full complexity. Maybe the reason is so that we're always wanting to learn, we're always wanting to grow and develop and look for the next thing. If we weren't a complex being, we'd go so far in studying and then go, okay, there's nothing else to study. There's nothing else to think about. But these things come up, I think, for a reason, to help us in our growth. And I guess that's why I really wanted to do this. Because this podcast, the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, is about OCD and anxiety disorders. And I think this world of the transgender is a high anxiety world because of what they have to go through, and the traumas and the difficulties and the bullying and all the stuff they get. There's a lot of, I can only imagine, of course, I'm not, but I can imagine it has a high stress and anxiety level to it because, coming out, being afraid, being fearful of your life, because some people would probably rather kill you than understand you. So I think it fits with the Invisible Wheelchair podcast, because many times for people, it's one of those things that is invisible until they come out, and they have to deal with that invisible wheelchair they have of being something they are not presenting. And I feel for them. And so I wanted to advocate, to put it out there, to educate, that we can have more compassion for somebody that's going through that we can have more understanding for somebody like that. And at the least have more tolerance for it, that these are people. They are still human beings, and they're being more real about themselves than I think we are. So I wanted to educate, I wanted to advocate, to get it out there, to get that understanding out there. I would love to hear your comments, and in all shapes and sizes, because that could help lead to another podcast talking about the responses that I get from this. I would love to have them. And so in order to do that, you need to go to invisiblewheelchair.com to do that and leave me comments, and I'd be happy to respond. I'd love to respond. So I hope this helps to roughly educate. I'm going to say roughly because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor to really be able to explain the nuances of the brain, the nuances of the body, but to do it from my own understanding and my own clarity that I've gotten on the subject. And I hope that that helps. So thank you and take care. This concludes this podcast. We hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, we would love your comments, or if you have a story to tell, we want to put it up on the podcast. Simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com to do that. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest, we love guests. So simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com and contact us from there. Gina and I are here to help you or your family get to a better place naturally. Simply visit focusedhealthyfamily.com for more information. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep tapping and focusing forward for a better way.